Hey guys, I am Game Advisor, and today we'll be going over 7 of the most realistic survival games out there today. Do keep in mind, if you enjoy this video, feel free to like it or just subscribe if you want to see more content like it. We put out new videos constantly throughout the week, so make sure to come back and check once in a while because we have tons of new things you might be interested in. Otherwise, let's go ahead and start with The Isle. The Isle is a prehistoric simulation game where you will play as one of many different dinosaurs. You can play as just about any dinosaur you would want, or at least any mainstream dinosaur you would want. This includes things like T-Rexes and Triceratops. The game offers a very slow-paced gameplay style where your goal is to simply survive as long as possible. For an example, if say you play as a Triceratops, then you'll probably be spending a large portion of your time searching for green food to eat, while also attempting to set up a nest which acts as a sort of pseudo spawn point for other Triceratops players. This is great if you have friends that want to play with you, but you didn't spawn near each other or they're joining a little bit later into your run. That way they can start out as little baby Triceratopses nearby. Now, if you are playing as, say, a T-Rex, you're likely to spend a large portion of your time, instead of hunting for green food, hunting for red meat. Yes, this means you will be hunting down other players and also hunting down AI in order to keep yourself fed. And because T-Rexes are so big, you're going to need a lot of food. As you grow, you'll start to need more and more to sustain that T-Rex body or whatever kind of carnivore you're using. For an example, let's say you're playing as a raptor. Raptors don't actually need that much food compared to a T-Rex, so you can get away with killing a lot less in order to survive a lot longer. But your trade-off is that you're a little bit weaker, so it's not going to be as easy to take things down alone, and even in a group, sometimes it's still going to be risky. There is also the option to group up in herds, whether it be carnivore or herbivores. Just keep in mind, if you're in a carnivore group, there's a good chance you're going to have to eat your friends if you want to survive whenever you start to starve. Otherwise, if you're just looking for a prehistoric game with some good elements of realism to it, then I would highly recommend you check out The Isle, as it's one of my favorite survival games on the market today. Following that is DayZ. DayZ is a primarily PvP, open-world, full-loot game with some minor PvE elements. DayZ finds its realistic elements in its many different in-depth in-game systems. Whether it be needing to eat food, crafting a base, or simply catching a cold, DayZ is sure to deliver on that realism and add the systems to the game for you to experience. Now, this game was originally built as a mod for Arma, which, for those of you who don't know, is a military combat simulation game. So, of course, that means its gunplay and other combat mechanics are going to have quite a lot of realism built into them. There's really not a lot to say on the combat outside of just, hey, if you've played any sort of military shooter game, the guns are going to kind of work similar to that. They've got drop-off, they've got distances, you can zero your scopes, all that good stuff you would enjoy in a military realistic shooter game, but in a zombie-infested world. DayZ doesn't stop there though, as you will constantly be having something to worry about, since something is always wanting to kill you. Whether it be a storm that's passing overhead and making you drenched, and therefore catching a cold and eventually sick to the point of dying, or it be a wolf and zombie trying to turn you into their food, there's always just gonna be something out to get you, or something that's trying to kill you. Now, you may view this as a pro or a con, but DayZ has a lot to learn about it. Therefore, DayZ is a rather large commitment when it comes to playing the game. The biggest benefit of playing DayZ, however, is probably the modded servers, as even if you don't like the base gameplay that DayZ offers, there's still going to be a ton of very impactful mods that can dramatically change the way the game functions. If you are looking for a game though that offers some decent realism in all of its different elements, but also has some fun things like zombies in it, then DayZ is probably worth giving a shot, as long as you're willing to put in the time it takes to learn the game. After that, we have Space Engineers. Space Engineers is a survival game with optional PvP and PvE elements for those who want them. It focuses on a somewhat realistic, but not overly realistic physics system. Space Engineers does a great job of making that physics system really fun to enjoy for its players. This is because everything has a weight to it, everything has density, everything has sizes that it takes up, so you have to decide when you're building your structures or you're building your vehicles what's worth taking up that space. Maybe you decide you want to have a super compact spaceship, and that's fine, but you're gonna have to sacrifice something else in order to have it. Maybe you want a really big spaceship, but you won't be able to really take it down into Earth's gravity as it could get ripped apart because it's just too heavy. Again, Space Engineers is not a super hyper realistic physics game. It's more of giving you that sense of being an engineer who has the ability to go into space and in this cool sci-fi world where there is still a sense of realism to everything you're doing. An example of this is the fact that you will need to set up small factories, build mining ships, and of course build giant spaceships as well in order to continue to grow and build bigger and better things. An important thing to point out about Space Engineers is the fact that things can dramatically change in scale. There are ships that players have made in this game that are absolutely ginormous, and there are ships that are super tiny and have just enough room for one person to ride in. All of them are useful, all of them are cool, and Space Engineers won't limit you on that creativity, so if you want to build something big, or you want to build something small, or just something that's unique and interesting to look at, you'll be able to do all of that. This game has also been described by many of its players as a Minecraft in space with significantly more advanced mechanics. Space Engineers also offers a PvP community where you can pit your survival and PvP skills and your creations as well against real players and their designs. Therefore, if you're looking for a survival game that focuses on creativity and innovation with a sci-fi kind of a feel to it, then look no further, as Space Engineers is probably going to be a great game for you. Next on the list is going to be Green Hell. Green Hell is a PvE survival game where you will have to fight for your survival while lost in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. This game really tries to push that sense of brutality on you though, since you are stuck in the middle of the rainforest and you're a player who really doesn't know what's going on. They portray this sense of brutality to you in many different ways, but one of the most effective ways is the fact that everything in the game is constantly trying to kill you or eat you, whichever it may be. This means you'll have leeches sucking your blood and men that try to come hunt you down, while also dealing with man-eating tigers jumping out from the bushes. Your wounds will start to get infected from sleeping in bad areas or without some kind of a proper sleeping mat, while your overall stamina and max HP will go down due to lack of nutrition. I mean, when they said that Green Hell was a survival game, I kinda knew what they meant, but I didn't understand they meant it was really a game about just trying to stay alive. Now, the story that the game has isn't too bad either, as it offers the player something to work towards, although if we're being completely honest, it's hard enough just to stay alive when you're first learning this game, let alone worry about a storyline. So for those of you who do enjoy the story, there will be one there for you, and it's not necessarily bad, but I wouldn't give it, the highest quality. This isn't really a story-driven game as much as it is a survival game. Otherwise, one of my favorite things that really brings Green Hell to life and adds to that sense of realism is the fact that there are no true in-game menus. The way they do this is they make it so that whenever you want to access your inventory or craft an item, you will do so by interacting with your backpack. This keeps the game from having to have a massive amount of boxes in a big giant window to show you your current weight and your inventory spaces, and instead just immerses you more into the game by adding this extra layer of realism to it. They even have a watch that you'll wear that allows you to see your nutrition levels as well as some other useful information that helps to add to that element of realism and doesn't break your immersion by opening up a menu. So if you're looking for a realistic survival game that will really immerse you into its realistic survival mechanics, then I think Green Hell is definitely worth trying out. Up next is going to be SCUM. SCUM is an open world survival game with an extremely high level of realism built into it. This comes in the form of many different mechanics, but its most prominent ones are probably the vitamin and nutrition mechanics. SCUM makes it so that you will always need to keep your vitamin and nutrition levels at the right amount in order to be prepared for combat. This game even takes its vitamin and nutrition mechanics so seriously that it provides the player with an entire in-depth menu that is completely dedicated to showing exactly how high or how low each one of your different vitamins are. The game then takes this to a whole nother level by forcing you to interact with the Call of Duty mechanic. This means if you don't prepare properly before combat, then you might be relieving some unneeded stress at the wrong moment. I mean, when you have to go, you've gotta go. Your vitamins can also affect this mechanic, so just be sure not to eat too much fiber before the beginning of a battle. Otherwise, SCUM is a pretty straightforward open world survival game with plenty of other things in it. It's got zombies, hostile players, gun physics, giant mechs, base building, points of interest for you to explore, and tons of weapons for you to play with. Now, you may not see mechs walking around guarding outposts, and therefore SCUM isn't totally realistic in every single aspect. It is still realistic enough in pretty much all of its other mechanics to warrant a slot on this list. And therefore, if you guys want a survival game where you literally have to go to the bathroom or you can end up dying from it because it's just that realistic, then I would say it's worth giving SCUM a shot. Alrighty, we are moving on to our second to last game, which is going to be Tarkov. Tarkov is a first-person PvPvE session-based full loot survival game with a heavy focus on realistic armor and weapons. Tarkov's main gameplay loop is very focused on the gathering and collecting of loot in session-based runs while on one of its many different maps. This means you'll enter every session of Tarkov with whatever loot you brought in from your storage. Now, you could say go into a run fully geared up with tons of expensive loot that offers high-end protection values, but at the end of the day, you are still going to die to some random player with a crummy pistol and a lucky shot to the face. This means that sometimes you may just want to go in with little to no gear in order to maximize the chance of gaining profit per run. The realism Tarkov offers comes in the form of its gun and armor play. Let's say you are using some high-end armor made of metal plates. Well, that armor is going to be resistant to small, slower-moving projectiles like, say, shotgun pellets or hollow point pistol rounds. But just like real armor, it will still be ineffective against extremely high caliber armor penetrating rounds. So there is a limit to just about what every piece of armor can do and how much damage it can reduce. A lot of this will play into the type of ammo you're using and what type of armor you're shooting. So you have to be careful to think through all of these different things before each and every run. The realism even goes as far as to try and portray the gun sounds as accurately as they possibly can. The devs have accomplished this by listening to each one of those firearms in real life and then editing the audio those firearms put out so that similar audio to the actual gun sound is what you'll hear in game. The bottom line is that Tarkov is a very unforgiving and brutal game, especially to new players, but that's due to its realistic gun physics. Therefore, if you are specifically seeking a game that offers extremely realistic gun physics and combat, then Tarkov would probably be your best bet when it comes to a survival game. Alrighty, we are moving on to our last game for the list, and this is going to be Project Zomboid. Project Zomboid is a PvE survival zombie apocalypse game that was literally built with the idea of realism being its core mechanic. The whole idea behind Project Zomboid and its creation was that you should be able to test out your zombie apocalypse survival plan. This means that they want the game to have as much realism as they possibly can within it. Now, while the top-down lower quality graphics can be a deal breaker for some players as they don't look the most realistic, in most cases you'll start playing Project Zomboid and you'll start to just not care about those graphics. This is because the game has everything you could want to test out in a zombie survival game. Whether you want to use a rolling pin as a weapon or simply want to see how well a car can hold up against running into a horde of zombies, this game is going to let you test out all of those theories. The game even goes as far as to restrict the player to one singular life per character. This means if you die in the game, then you are going to lose all skill and level progress on that character you were playing. However, the world won't disappear, so you can continue where you left off with a second survivor in the same world, but that first survivor is now permanently dead and unplayable. This game is a great game for anybody who just wants the most realistic experience they can have within a zombie apocalypse. Again, this is a zombie apocalypse, and zombie apocalypses are naturally fake, but I personally think it is super cool that I can pull out a pencil from a drawer and try to kill a zombie, or I could use a spoon if I really wanted to. The whole idea that there is no serious restriction on the player and what type of way they want to deal with the different situations they're encountered with, whether it be sneaking, fighting, shooting a gun, melee attack, or some other thing, is just super cool to me. So if that sounds interesting to you and you can get over the somewhat low quality graphics, then I would highly recommend you give Project Zomboid a try, as it is probably the most realistic game on this list. Again, this is all just my opinion, so give it a try for yourself and feel free to let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Now, if you would like to see more videos like this, do feel free to subscribe down below or just like if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, obviously don't, but otherwise I do want to give a big shout out to our Platinum and above channel members, as you guys are a huge support to our channel. This includes Caustic FPV, Jonathan S, and Jim Phillips. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Game Advisor, and I'll see you next time.